Introduction. In 1952, a man named James Robertson walked into a hospital in London carrying a heavy, clunky film camera. He was not a famous doctor. He did not have a wall full of degrees or a list of awards. In the eyes of the medical world, he was just a social worker. He was an outsider in a place of white coats and strict rules. At that time, hospitals had a rule that seems cruel today. If a child had to stay for surgery or treatment, the parents had to leave them at the door. Doctors and nurses believed that seeing parents made the children upset. They thought it was better for the children to be alone so they could stay quiet and manageable. They called this good medicine. They thought they were protecting the children from germs and emotional fuss. James Robertson didn't believe them. He saw the look in the children's eyes. He saw the way they stopped eating, and the way they stared at the walls. He decided to do something that no one had ever done. He decided to film it. He chose a little 2-year-old girl named Laura. She was going into the hospital for a minor surgery that would take 8 days. In the film, which is titled A 2-Year-Old Goes to Hospital, we see Laura at first as a bright, happy child. Then her mother leaves. The film is hard to watch. For the first 2 days, Laura screams. She begs for her mother. She watches the door with a look of pure terror. This is the stage James called protest. Then, something even sadder happens. Laura goes quiet. She stops crying. She sits in her crib, clutching a blanket, looking like a tiny old woman who has lost everything. This is despair. Finally, by the time her mother comes to pick her up, Laura does something shocking. She turns away. She doesn't want to be held. She acts as if her mother is a stranger. This is detachment. When James showed this film to a room full of doctors, they were angry. They didn't want to believe that a child's quietness was actually a sign of a broken heart. They tried to ban the film. They told James he was being dramatic. But the film didn't lie. It proved that for a human being separated from a loved one isn't just sad. It is a physical trauma. It feels like a threat to your very life. This film became the spark that changed everything. It helped a smart man named John Bowlby prove that we are all born with a biological tether to the people we love. We don't just want connection. We need it to survive, just like we need air and water. The invisible alarm in your brain. If you are reading this book, you might feel a lot like Laura did in that hospital ward. You might not be a 2-year-old in a crib, but when your partner doesn't text back for 3 hours, your brain reacts exactly the same way. Your heart starts to race. Your palms get sweaty. You check your phone every 30 seconds. You start to wonder, what did I do wrong? Are they mad at me? Are they leaving? You might even start to feel a little bit crazy. You tell yourself to calm down, but the fear is too big. It feels like a giant wave that is about to pull you under. This is not because you are weak. It is not because you are too much or too needy. It is because you have an anxious attachment style. Think of it like a smoke alarm in your brain. For most people, the smoke alarm only goes off when there is a real fire. But for you, the alarm is set to be very, very sensitive. A cold tone of voice, a short text, or a partner needing some space feels like a forest fire. Your brain screams danger, and your whole body goes into survival mode. You might spend your nights over analyzing every word someone said to you. You might find yourself testing people to see if they really care. You might even pull away first, just so they can't hurt you. This constant state of watching for signs of rejection is called hypervigilance. It is exhausting. It feels like you are a guard standing on a castle wall, waiting for an enemy that never actually arrives. The worst part is the shame. You see other people who seem so cool and chill in their relationships. You wonder why you can't just be like them. You wonder why love feels like a roller coaster while for everyone else, it looks like a walk in the park. The promise of the secure anchor. I want you to take a deep breath. Right now. Fill your lungs and let it out slowly. The pain you feel is real, but it is not your destiny. You were not born to spend your life waiting for a text message to tell you that you are okay. You were not born to be a vigilant watcher. By the time you finish this book, you are going to become something different. I call it the secure anchor. An anchor is heavy and strong. It doesn't matter how big the waves are or how hard the wind blows, the anchor stays exactly where it is supposed to be. When you become a secure anchor, you will stop scanning for threats and start trusting your own value. Feel calm and grounded even when your partner is busy or far away. Learn how to say what you need without shouting, crying, or hiding. Understand why you keep picking people who make you feel lonely. Build a safe base inside yourself so you never have to beg for love again. This is not just a dream. It is based on decades of science. We now know that the brain can change. Just like you can learn a new language or how to play the piano, you can learn how to feel secure. You can rewire the parts of your brain that panic. You can teach your smoke alarm to only go off when there is an actual fire. You are going to learn how to move from a place of fear to a place of freedom. You will find out that you have always deserved a safe, steady love. And for the first time, you will have the tools to actually keep it. Maya's longest night. To understand how this works in real life, I want you to meet Maya Sterling. Maya is 32 years old. She lives in a beautiful apartment in Seattle with her rescue cat, Juno. She is incredibly smart. She works as a senior designer for a big tech company. If you met her at work, you would think she had it all figured out. She is organized, creative, and brave enough to stand up in front of a room full of people to present her ideas. But when it comes to love, Maya feels like she is 2 years old again, standing in that London hospital. It is 11:45 p.m. on a Tuesday. Maya is sitting on her sofa, but she isn't watching the movie on the TV. She is staring at her phone. She is waiting for a text from Liam. Liam is someone she has been seeing for 4 months. He's funny and kind, but he's also busy. He's the kind of guy who forgets to check his phone for half a day. To Maya, that half a day feels like a year. She sent him a text 3 hours ago. She asked, "Hey, are we still on for dinner tomorrow?" She has checked the message 40 times. She sees the 2 blue check marks. He has read it. Suddenly, she sees 3 little gray bubbles popping up on the screen. He is typing. Her heart leaps. She holds her breath. Then, the bubbles disappear. 2 minutes pass. 5 minutes. 10. Maya feels a tightness in her chest that makes it hard to breathe. Her brain starts the what-if game. What if he's realized I'm boring? What if he's with someone else? What if he's trying to figure out how to break up with me? She picks up her phone to type something else. She wants to write, "Is everything okay?" but she stops. She doesn't want to look crazy. She throws the phone across the bed in frustration. But 10 seconds later, she is crawling across the covers to get it back. She feels disgusted with herself. She feels like she is losing her mind over a man who might just be brushing his teeth. Maya's mother was what doctors call critically cold. Growing up, Maya never knew which version of her mom she would get. Some days, her mom was sweet. Most days, she was distant and annoyed. Maya learned early on that if she was perfect, if she got straight A's and never made a mess, her mom might stay a little longer. Now at 32, Maya is still trying to be perfect for Liam. She is still waiting for the door to open. She is still the girl in the crib, watching for her mother to come back. Maya's story is the story of so many of us. She has the skills to design complex computer programs, but she doesn't have the skills to soothe her own nervous system. She is trapped in the invisible tether. She believes that her safety depends entirely on Liam's reply. In this book, we are going to follow Maya as she learns to put the phone down. We are going to watch her face the ghosts of her childhood and learn how to stand on her own 2 feet. By the end, she won't be waiting for Liam to save her. She will have saved herself. The path ahead. The journey from being a watcher like Maya to being an anchor is a clear path. We are going to walk it together, one step at a time. First, we will look at where this all started. We will look at the famous strange situation experiment and help you find exactly where your attachment style comes from. You will see that your behavior isn't a mystery, it's a map of your past. Next, we will look at the science of your brain. You will learn about the amygdala hijack and why you can't think your way out of a panic attack. I will give you tools like the emotional thermostat to help you turn down the heat before you do something you regret. We will talk about the anxious avoidant trap. This is the strange magnet that draws anxious people to partners who pull away. You will learn why the spark you feel for someone might actually just be your anxiety disguised as chemistry. Then, we will move into the deep work. We will look at protest behavior, the things we do to get attention that actually end up pushing people away. We will learn how to set boundaries that feel like gates instead of walls. We will even look at the life of Eleanor Roosevelt. She was a woman who started life as a lonely, rejected child, but grew up to be one of the most secure and powerful women in history. Her story will show you that your beginning does not have to be your end. Finally, we will build your secure roadmap. You will learn how to communicate your needs with honesty instead of fear. You will learn how to be your own secure base. This book isn't just about finding a better relationship. It's about finding a better you. It's about the moment you realize that you are no longer a child in a hospital ward, waiting for someone to come back. You are the one who holds the key to the door. You have spent a long time being afraid. You have spent a long time watching the door. It is time to stop watching and start living. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Day the Strange Situation Changed Psychology. A small white room at Johns Hopkins University in 1969 held nothing but a few chairs, a pile of colorful toys, and a one-way mirror. To anyone walking by the hallway in Baltimore, it looked like a simple play area for toddlers. But behind that mirror, a woman named Mary Ainsworth was about to change everything we thought we knew about love, fear, and why we hold on so tight to the people we care about. She was watching a 1-year-old boy play with a plastic truck. The boy's mother sat nearby, reading a magazine. Everything seemed normal. Then, following a strict plan Mary had created, the mother stood up and quietly walked out of the room. The boy didn't just cry. He collapsed. He screamed and threw himself against the door. A few minutes later, the mother returned. This was the most important moment of the study. In that second of reunion, Mary expected the boy to be happy. Instead, he did something strange. He ran to his mother, but as she reached down to pick him up, he kicked her. He hit her arms. He wanted to be held, but he was too angry to be comforted. He couldn't settle down. Even in her arms, he kept looking at the door, his little body shaking with a mix of need and rage. Mary scribbled notes on her clipboard. She realized she wasn't just looking at a fussy baby. She was looking at a survival strategy. She was watching the birth of what we now call anxious attachment. This small moment in a quiet room revealed a truth that follows us from the playground to the boardroom and eventually into our adult bedrooms. The way we react when someone pulls away isn't a flaw in our personality. It is a biological program that was written into our brains before we could even speak. The myth of the spoiled heart. For a long time, experts believed that if a child was clingy or cried too much, it was because their parents were too soft. They thought that too much love made children weak. Doctors told parents not to pick up their babies every time they cried because it would spoil them. They believed that if you ignored a child's tears, they would learn to be independent and strong. Mary Ainsworth suspected this was a lie. She had spent years working with another famous researcher named John Bowlby. Together, they believed that humans are born with a biological need to stay close to a safe person. They called this the invisible tether. Think of it like a literal rope made of emotions. If the rope is short and strong, the child feels safe to explore the world. If the rope feels like it might snap at any moment, the child stops exploring and spends all their energy trying to tie the knot tighter. Mary wanted to prove that clinginess wasn't about being spoiled. She believed it was a response to inconsistent love. She noticed that the babies who acted the most desperate, the ones who couldn't be calmed down, were often the ones whose parents were sometimes very loving and sometimes very cold or distant. These children lived in a state of maybe. Maybe mom will pick me up. Maybe she will ignore me. Because they never knew which version of their parent they would get, their brains stayed on high alert. They learned that the only way to get their needs met was to turn up the volume. They had to scream louder, cling harder, and watch the door more closely than any other child. This shattered the myth of the spoiled child. It showed that anxiety isn't a sign of weakness. It is a sign of a brain trying to stay safe in a world where love feels unpredictable. When we carry this into adulthood, we aren't just being dramatic about a late text message. We are reacting to that same old fear that the person we love might walk out the door and never come back. Inside the strange situation. Mary Ainsworth's experiment became known as the strange situation. It was a 20-minute test, divided into short parts. Each part was designed to put a tiny bit of stress on the child's attachment system. First, the child and parent played together. Next, a stranger entered the room. Then the parent left. Finally, the parent came back. Mary watched hundreds of families go through this cycle. As she watched, she saw three very clear groups emerge. The first group was the secure children. When their mothers left, they were upset, but they could be calmed. When the mother returned, they ran to her, got a hug, and then went right back to playing. They trusted the tether. They knew that even if the person left, they would return. The second group was the avoidant children. These children seemed like they didn't care at all. When the mother left, they kept playing. When she came back, they didn't look up. For years, people thought these were the brave kids. But Mary noticed something hidden. Even though they looked calm on the outside, their hearts were racing. They had simply learned that showing their feelings didn't help, so they shut down to protect themselves. The third group, the one that explains the vigilant watcher, was the anxious resistant group. These were the children who were obsessed with the mother's location. They wouldn't play with the toys even when she was in the room, because they were too busy making sure she didn't leave. When she did leave, they fell apart. When she returned, they were stuck in a loop of, "I hate you, don't leave me." They wanted the connection, but they didn't trust it. They were trapped in a cycle of protest. This protest is the foundation of relationship anxiety. As adults, we do the same thing. We send 10 texts in a row when someone doesn't reply. We pick a fight just to get a reaction. We act difficult because in our deep down brain, a reaction, even a bad one, is better than being ignored. Maya's discovery. 32 years after Mary Ainsworth's study, Maya Sterling sat in a small therapy office in Seattle. The room was much nicer than the lab at Johns Hopkins. It had soft lighting, a green velvet couch, and a view of the gray rain hitting the window. But inside her chest, Maya felt exactly like that one-year-old boy screaming at the door. Her therapist, a calm woman with silver hair, had just finished explaining the strange situation. "Does any of that sound familiar?" the therapist asked. Maya felt a hot flush of shame creep up her neck. She thought about the night before. It was 2 a.m. She had been staring at her phone, watching the active now status of a man named Liam. She had sent him a funny meme at 8 p.m. He hadn't liked it or replied, even though she could see he was online. She had spent those 6 hours going through every possible reason for his silence. Is he bored of me? Did I sound too thirsty? Is he with someone else? She had typed out a long, angry paragraph telling him he was disrespectful, then deleted it. Then she typed a sweet message asking if he was okay, then deleted that too. Finally, she had just turned her phone off and cried, only to turn it back on 3 minutes later to see if anything had changed. "I'm the child who kicks," Maya whispered. She realized that her mother had been the inconsistent caregiver Mary Ainsworth described. Maya's mother was a brilliant but cold woman who only showed affection when Maya won an award or stayed perfectly quiet. If Maya was sad or too much, her mother would simply walk out of the room or stop talking to her for days. Maya had spent her whole life trying to keep the tether from snapping. At work, she was a high-achieving designer because she thought, perfect, people don't get abandoned. But in love, she was a mess. Every time a partner pulled away to do their own thing, Maya's brain didn't see a healthy adult taking space. It saw the critically cold mother walking out the door. It saw the empty room at Johns Hopkins. "You aren't a mess, Maya," her therapist said. "You're just using a survival tool that you don't need anymore. Your brain is trying to protect you from a lion that isn't in the room." The biological imperative. To understand why we feel this way, we have to look at what John Bowlby called the biological imperative of proximity. That sounds like a big phrase, but it's actually very simple. For a baby, proximity, being close to a caregiver, is the difference between life and death. In the wild, a baby who wanders away from the tribe or loses its mother gets eaten. There is no independence for an infant. Therefore, our brains evolved a special alarm system. This system is always scanning the environment for one thing: where is my person? If the person is close and responsive, the alarm stays off. We feel secure. We can eat, sleep, and learn. But if the person becomes distant or unpredictable, the alarm goes off. This is the attachment system in action. When you have anxious attachment, your alarm system is set too high. It's like having a smoke detector that goes off every time you light a candle. You aren't being crazy. Your brain is simply trying to keep you alive. It thinks that if you lose the connection with your partner, you will literally die. This is why relationship anxiety feels so physical. When someone doesn't text back, your heart doesn't just hurt, it pounds. Your stomach doesn't just feel off, it knots up. Your hands might shake. This is your body pumping out chemicals to get you ready to fight for the connection or flee from the pain. John Bowlby insisted that this need for others isn't something we grow out of. He believed that from the cradle to the grave, we are designed to be connected. The problem isn't that we need people. The problem is that when we don't feel safe, our protest behaviors actually drive people away, creating the very abandonment we are so afraid of. The invisible tether, today. In 1969, Mary Ainsworth was watching children in a physical room. Today, the room is often digital. The invisible tether has been replaced by the digital tether. We now have the ability to monitor our caregivers, our partners, 24 hours a day. We see their read receipts. We see their last seen status. We see them liking other people's photos on Instagram. For someone with a secure attachment, these are just data points. For someone with anxious attachment, these are threat signals. Every time you check your phone to see if they've replied, you are performing a modern version of the strange situation. You are looking for the reunion. You are trying to see if the tether is still there. The tragedy of the anxious resistant style is that even when the mother or the partner returns, the person can't enjoy it. If Liam had texted Maya back at 2:05 a.m., she wouldn't have felt peaceful. She would have felt a brief hit of relief, followed quickly by anger. Why did it take him so long? Does he think he can just ignore me and then act like everything is fine? This is the clinging survival strategy in action. It's a way of saying, I need you so much that I have to punish you for making me feel this way. But there is a way out. Mary Ainsworth didn't just discover the problem, she discovered that attachment styles can change. She saw that when caregivers became more consistent and attuned, even the most anxious children could start to feel secure. For us as adults, this means we don't have to wait for someone else to change. We can learn to be the secure base for ourselves. We can learn to recognize the sound of the alarm and tell our brains, thank you for trying to keep me safe, but there is no lion here. Turning the thermostat down. Healing starts with a simple realization: your anxiety is not you. It is a protective layer. It is a set of habits you learned when you were too small to protect yourself. Think of your emotional state like a thermostat. In a secure person, the thermostat is set to a comfortable 70 degrees. When a partner is busy or distant, the temperature might drop to 65, but they know it will warm up again soon. In an anxious person, the thermostat is set to 95 degrees. The moment there is a draft, a short text, a canceled plan, a change in tone, the temperature spikes to 100. You are redlining. At 100 degrees, you can't think clearly. You can't be cool. You can only react. The goal of this book isn't to make you stop needing love. That would be like trying to stop needing water. The goal is to help you recalibrate your thermostat. Maya Sterling began to do this by looking at her 2 a.m. phone checking, not as a sign that she was pathetic, but as a sign that her inner infant was terrified. Instead of sending the angry text, she started practicing a new skill. She would put her hand on her heart and say, "I am safe. I am here. The tether is not broken." It wasn't easy. It felt fake at first. But she was starting to build a new script. She was moving from the vigilant watcher to something new. We often think that if we just find the right person, our anxiety will vanish. We think that the perfect partner will be so consistent and so loving that we will never feel afraid again. But as Mary Ainsworth showed, the anxious resistant child often struggles to accept comfort even when it is offered. If we don't heal the internal alarm, we will eventually find a reason to be anxious, even with a perfect partner. We will overanalyze their silence, or worry that their kindness is a trap. The real work isn't finding someone who never leaves the room. The real work is becoming someone who knows they will be okay, even if the door closes for a while. As you move forward, keep the image of that small room in Baltimore in your mind. See the toys, the one-way mirror, and the child. When you feel that familiar spike of panic in your chest, remember that it's just an old survival program running on new hardware. You are no longer that child. You are no longer trapped in a maybe world. You have the power to look at the strange situation of your own life and choose a different reaction. But before we can build that new security, we have to understand the most dangerous trap of all. Why is it that the people who struggle the most with the fear of being left always seem to find themselves falling for the people who are most likely to leave? Why does the anxious watcher almost always find a runner? The answer lies in a strange psychological magnet that pulls opposites together in a way that feels like chemistry, but is actually a recipe for a heart-pounding disaster. If you've ever wondered why you are bored by nice people and obsessed with mysterious ones, you are about to find out. Chapter 2: Why do we chase the people who pull away? The consequences of an act affect the probability of its occurring again. Burris Frederick Skinner, known to his friends as BF, wrote these words with a quiet clinical focus. It was the mid-1940s, and the world was trying to put itself back together after a devastating war. Inside the brick walls of Harvard University, Skinner wasn't interested in the grand movements of history or the deep secrets of the human soul. He was interested in what made things move. Specifically, he wanted to know why living creatures repeat certain behaviors while abandoning others. He sat in his lab, surrounded by custom-built wooden crates that would later be known as Skinner boxes. Inside one of these boxes lived a single hungry pigeon. The bird had a simple task: peck a small plastic disc on the wall. If the pigeon did it right, a tiny mechanical tray would click, and a single grain of corn would appear. At first, Skinner set the machine to give the pigeon a grain of corn every single time it pecked the disc. The pigeon learned quickly. It would peck, eat, and then wait until it was hungry again. It was a calm, predictable relationship. The bird knew exactly where it stood. There was no drama. There was no obsession. But then Skinner changed the rules. He adjusted the machine so that the grain of corn didn't come every time. Sometimes the pigeon pecked and got nothing. Sometimes it pecked 3 times and got a grain. Sometimes it had to peck 20 times. There was no pattern. It was completely random. The result was startling. The pigeon didn't give up. It didn't walk away in frustration. Instead, it became completely obsessed. The bird began to peck the disc with a frantic, desperate energy. It stopped grooming itself. It ignored other things in its environment. It stayed glued to that